Oh, little ones, I'm back with another wise and wonderful story. Today's tale is about a boy, a village, and a big, bad wolf. It's called The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Are you ready? Let's begin. Once upon a time, in a small, peaceful village, there lived a young boy named Jake. Jake had a very important job. Every morning, he would take the village sheep up the hill so they could eat fresh green grass. The sun would shine, the breeze would blow gently, and the sheep would munch happily all around him. But Jake was bored. He would sit under a big tree, resting his chin on his hands, watching the clouds float by. Sighing loudly, "There's nothing fun to do," Jake mumbled, "no one to talk to, just sheep and silence." Now Jake wasn't a bad boy, just a little restless. He liked to laugh, he liked excitement, and that's when a naughty little idea popped into his head. He smiled to himself, sat up straight, and whispered, "What if I made things a little more interesting today? Oh dear, what do you think Jake is about to do?" Hoo! Let's find out in the next part. One sunny afternoon, as the sheep grazed quietly on the green hill, Jake sat under the big tree once again. His eyes wandered across the field. No excitement, no fun, just sheep, grass, sky, and more sheep. Then suddenly, Jake's eyes lit up. His face slowly changed, from bored to curious, and then to mischievous. He jumped to his feet and looked down at the village. A tiny grin spread across his face. "I know what I'll do," Jake whispered. "This will be fun." He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "Wolf, wolf, a wolf is coming." Down in the village, the people froze. "Did he say wolf?" said the baker. "Oh no, the sheep," cried the farmer. Without thinking twice, the villagers grabbed their sticks and tools and ran up the hill as fast as they could. Jake watched them come, trying not to laugh, and when they reached the top, panting, sweating, ready to fight the wolf, Jake burst into giggles. "Ha ha ha, fooled you all, there is no wolf." The villagers were not happy. They frowned and said, "Jake, this is not funny, don't do that again." But Jake just smiled. The next day, Jake was back on the hill with the sheep. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and the sheep were as quiet as ever. Jake sat under the same old tree, and yep, you guessed it, he was bored again. He looked at the village below, then at the sheep, then back at the village, and slowly, that naughty smile returned to his face. He stood up, cupped his hands, and shouted once more, "Wolf, wolf, a big, scary wolf." Down in the village, the people gasped. "Not again," said the farmer. "He must be serious this time," said the baker. Once more, they dropped everything, grabbed their tools and sticks, and ran up the hill to help, and once again, Jake burst into laughter. "Ha ha, I got you again." The villagers were out of breath, sweaty, and not amused. This time, they didn't laugh. They shook their heads. "Jake," one of them said, "if you keep lying, no one will believe you." But Jake just shrugged. He thought it was all a funny game. Oh dear, he doesn't know what's coming next. Hoo, but we do. The next morning was quiet, too quiet. Jake led the sheep up the hill once more, but this time there was no silly plan, no naughty grin, and no shouting. He just sat under the tree, yawning, watching the clouds float by. Suddenly, a strange sound broke the silence. Crunch, crackle, snap. Jake sat up straight. What was that? He whispered from behind the trees. Something moved, a shadow, big and dark, crept closer. And then out came a pair of glowing eyes, followed by sharp teeth, pointy ears, and soft, silent paws. It was a real wolf. The sheep froze, Jake froze, the wolf growled low and stepped toward the flock. Jake jumped up and screamed, "Wolf! Wolf, someone help!" He waved his arms wildly. He shouted louder than ever, but down in the village, no one moved. The baker kept kneading dough. The farmer kept watering his plants. They had heard that cry before, and they didn't believe it anymore. Jake looked around. No help, no villagers, just him and the wolf. Oh no, he whispered, this time, it's real. Hoo, what will Jake do now? Jake stood frozen. The wolf was getting closer, and the sheep were crying out in fear. He shouted once more, help, please, somebody, but no one came. Jake realized something. This wasn't a game anymore. And it was his fault no one believed him. The wolf growled and the sheep began to run. Jake waved his arms and shouted with all his heart, and finally, one shepherd passing nearby heard the noise. He rushed up the hill with his dog, and together they scared the wolf away. The sheep were safe, but Jake sat quietly under the tree, his head low. Later that evening he walked back to the village and said softly, I'm sorry, I lied, and I won't do it again. The villagers forgave him, but they reminded him gently, words are powerful, Jake. If we lie, people stop trusting us even when we tell the truth. And now, little ones, always speak the truth, because trust, once broken, is very hard to earn again. Hoo. That's the end of our tale. Until next time, stay wise.